Hi everyone, welcome back to the London Football Show. We thought it's time for another episode. Before we talk about the latest football action, we give our condolences to Sir Bobby Charlton, one of England or arguably England's greatest ever footballer, and obviously Everton's chairman or former chairman. Was it Ken Billwright? Oh yeah. There's Bobby Charlton there, as was Anthony showed. Bill Kenwright, sorry, obviously passed away as well. So that's sort of recent, like passing away of football icons or and Bill Kenwright, obviously. So we'll go into
I
the
think that leaves. I think that leaves only Sir Geoff Hurst as the remaining Worson in the starting 11 for the 1966 World Cup.
yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, last man
And he was
standing.
he was at West Ham. He was at West Ham yesterday. Sir Geoff Hurst.
Yeah, they showed him, isn't it? They showed him on Sky. Yeah, I saw that. Right, we'll delve into the latest football action. I'll start. Chelsea, another defeat. That's what Luton. No, not Luton. Sorry, Aston Villa. Who else has come to Stamford Bridge now? Nottingham Forest, Brentford. I told Rosanford on the way home because we traveled on the way home. I said, do we even play home games anymore? We play 38 away games because wherever we play, teams just come to Stamford Bridge, walk all over us. Brentford, that first goal, basically Brentford, both their goals is just them sort of out muscling us. They just want it more than us. Nothing to do with like skill or anything like that. It's just desire. And obviously the second goal, it sort of summed it up. Ian Matson, obviously, he's a youngster. I'm not gonna go in too hard on him, but bit soft in terms of going down like on a counter attack, and then Brentford they go and score, and then Ethan Pinnock for the first goal, unchallenged in our box. It's not good enough. And I told Rosanford, for me, that's our league season done. In terms of our aspirations for the season, where we should be, we've got no excuse not to be getting top four at the very least this year, if not higher. And I don't see that happening now. So but at the end of October, for me, our league season's finished. Whatever we do now, Europa League is not good enough, even if we were to get that, which I don't think we will anyway, because I don't think we're even good enough to even overhaul or overtake the likes of Villa, Unai Emery. Like Villa, they're flying, fantastic ever since he's come in. Newcastle's, forget about even them, let alone Liverpool's, Man City's, Arsenal's, they're done. Spurs, they're gone from us. So it's a failure already. And what all I have left is what Carabao Cup. If we get knocked out of that, then my season's over pretty much. So is pathetic because and it's a joke. So I don't know what more to say on us. Obviously, the week before Arsenal, yeah, I saw people say, yeah, we played well. But me, I'd rather play dead and win the game. 2-0, it's a 90-minute game. For me, it's a defeat. The Arsenal game, I'm sorry, is a defeat. When you're 2-0 up and you don't win the game, it's a defeat. If it went 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, fine. But no, I'm sorry. Like, you
Look,
don't have the
so,
mentality. You don't have the
so
mentality.
Sion, then, what do you think is the problem? Is it the management? Is it the players? Because
Um,
they can't say they haven't got everything at their disposal.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? They've got
yeah.
probably one, like, they've got everything to make them the top team in terms of training ground, high class manager, high class players, unlimited cash. So what is the problem?
Like for me, I blame for the last couple games. I blame the manager, to be honest. I blame the manager. I see like the Arsenal game. We made the subs. We made substitutions right in the Arsenal game where we brought off Mudryk and Sterling. Mudryk especially, like our main attacking threats. I think we might have even brought Cole Palmer off in that game. As soon as Arsenal peg us back to 2-1, we've gotten like nothing going forward to even score a third goal. So it's like if we're not hanging on to the 2-1 and seeing that game out, then we're in trouble. And as it proved, Arsenal, once they scored, Arsenal were the ones in the ascendancy. If there was another 10, 15 minutes in that game, Arsenal were going to score again. And that would have been 3 points like lost. We wouldn't have even got a draw. So some of the last few games, I blame Poch's decision making, to be honest. But in terms of like the long run, in terms of like the long term, obviously Todd Bowie, his first summer, we sort of messed up. So obviously he's made his mistakes as well, which we're still in the process of trying to rectify. But we should be with the current squad we have, we should be higher in the table. And I point the finger at the manager and the players on that front, not the owner. In terms of like our last few games, we've got no excuse losing to Nottingham Forest at home, Villa at home, Brentford at home. 3 home defeats already this season, and that's none of them have come to the traditional big six. So
So,
it's not good enough.
so my next question, because after you sort of, I'm glad you're over my wavelength a bit, because I don't think you can blame the owner at all, because
No,
is like the money's invested in it, like
yeah,
it's
yeah, so,
unlimited. So I don't think you
yeah,
can blame like the owner too much. So my next
no.
question is then, how do you solve the problem? If you could change your manager, would you? Or would you, if you could bring two players in, and I'm being generous by saying two, any players, who would you bring in? Or would you change your manager?
No, I wouldn't change the manager because he's still just come in, still needs time. So
So what two
would have
positions do you need? What two positions do you think you need?
the 100 striker 100%. That is number one.
You've never had a striker for
No,
years.
since Diego Costa, since Costa left in 2017, 6 years I've been starved. I've been deprived of a top class striker to put chances away. It's 6 years now, coming to 7 years. We're nearly finished
But
2020.
you had a striker ready made,
Yeah,
Abraham.
yeah, that's true.
You
Abraham's
know what I
better. He's
mean?
much better than like all the attacking options, all the strikers we've got now. And if I bring in another player, it's sort of just it naturally happens. Thiago Silva, obviously being like aging now, he's gonna be gone. So I'm
Your
bringing
best
another
player is
striker.
39 years old,
Yeah, and he's our best player. He's still
and
our
he
best
doesn't
player.
play in goal. And he doesn't play in goal.
Yeah, but the fact Silva's probably still arguably my best player, it just says it all. It just says the state of our team, despite spending all these millions, we don't have a striker up front. So if you told me to name a striker, I'll bring in Victor Osimhen, to be honest. I'll
So
bring in him.
do you keep your manager
Yep.
if you finish eighth in the league and win
Yeah.
the Carabao Cup, the League Cup?
Yes, I would
Or
keep
is
him
that still
because
not enough?
no, yeah, I would give him I'll give him another season. I'll give him another season if we did that. Because obviously,
Fair
like,
enough.
yeah,
Fair
because
enough.
obviously it's his fault, but obviously like not all. I can't blame everything on him, but in terms of like these recent last few games, I blame him to be honest. But in terms of the bigger picture, I won't sack him. I wouldn't sack him. I still give him time. I'll give him I'll give him end of this rest of this season and next season before I'll like make my judgment on whether I think he should stay.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I've done my best for Sanford because obviously our teams aren't doing that well. So I just wanted to waste most of the podcast on Chelsea and see
All
on,
right,
you know,
right. Well,
basically crying. Basically crying.
Dara Zamford, Man United.
I mean, yeah, just a heads up. I mean, this is probably going to be one of the dullest episodes, I think.
Oh yeah,
Of,
you know, I think Razamfan told me it's funny because I was like, oh, like we have the podcast today, all our teams lost, and then he reminded me all of us are at home, which I didn't even think of. We're all at home games for us. But go on.
yeah, it was embarrassing. Um, yeah, Manchester Derby. I think everyone saw it coming, but I think there was just that slight delusion in the United fans' heads, thinking we might get something. But I mean, did I expect anything less? No. I mean, City ran the show. I saw the highlights, didn't get a chance to watch the game, but first few minutes seemed like we were all right. But then after the penalty or on the penalty incident, they just took over. Amrabat coming off second half completely made it worse. Didn't understand the tactics or the subs the managers made. Anthony was one of our better players against Copenhagen in the Champions League during the week. Didn't start the game. Not too sure why Varane wasn't in the squad. He didn't really answer that. Ten Hag didn't really answer that question properly in the press interview. But whatever it is, you got a better manager. But I can see why fans are starting to doubt him. Do I think it's completely his fault? No. But then again, similar to Sion, like we had a whole transfer window. There was plenty of strikers we could have picked up. Didn't go for the greatest one. We paid what 70 million for Haaland, who barely touched double figures for Atalanta last season. I know we wouldn't have stood a chance with Kane just purely because it's political, but Osimhen was still there, had a great season with Napoli. He would have probably loved to have joined a club like Manchester United, but did we go for it? No. And even the activities during our transfer window, they weren't really reassuring for me as a United fan. Amrabat was a last minute signing, and even then it was a loan deal. Is that saying that we can't even afford players like Amrabat now? Is that how low the standards has dropped with Manchester United? Yeah, overall was a poor performance. The only shining light, like Chelsea, is the Carabao Cup and other cup competitions because, I mean, I mentioned it a few episodes ago. The league's gone. You can't lose this many games. We've now lost 5 games. I'm pretty sure it's either, I think we're only 3 defeats away from the total we lost last season. And we've lost 3 home games this season. We only lost once last season, and that was very, very early on. So it's not looking promising for us, I'll be honest.
I've got a question for Razamfan. So obviously, as you mentioned, Varane, like I watched the Ten Hag, like the pre-match interview, and like they were asking him about Varane, and he said left out for tactical reasons. And then obviously a few weeks back, I don't know I saw like Casemiro like allegedly him like saying he like made a mistake going to United. So I wanted to ask, like, obviously them two along with like De Gea, Alessandro, they formed like sort of the spine, which was like the main like factor of your success last season. So do you think there's been some sort of falling out with some of these players behind the scenes that we don't know about, or am I reading too much into it?
I mean, what happens behind the scenes is up to them. I mean, if they do have falling outs, I mean, Ten Hag, he needs to come in and intervene. Simple as that. I mean, I know no one will ever come as close as Sir Alex, but as a manager, your job is to manage people, or in terms of football, manage players. You're gonna come across people like with bad personalities. And if I'm being honest, the players at Man United at this current moment, they're not like the big personalities. You know, they're not someone you're too hard to handle. When you compare in the past, we had the likes of, Roy Keane, Beckham, Ronaldo in his prime. They were big personalities, they had big egos, but they were still able to be managed. Yet now it's a problem. Ten Hag, the situation with Sancho, not even letting him train with the first team. It's all ridiculous in my opinion. I think a lot of things were like pushed away last season. I think we overachieved. I think every fan can admit that we did overachieve, in my personal opinion. My expectations were still high, but given our circumstances, we overachieved. We didn't have a proper number nine. You got to remember, Weghorst didn't score a single goal in the Prem during his loan spell, and only 2 goals in all comps. Martial was pretty much absent. It was Rashford carried us, and and I guess he carried us up until maybe March. After that, he somewhat, disappeared. Um, yes, there are other factors. Two of our best defenders, or the only defenders, if I'm going to be honest, that I could proudly say for United, got injured during a few week spell, and that kind of caused our defense to crumble. But I can't completely blame it on that because yes, there's been games where we've lost because of our defense, but I can also think of games where we could have won, but there was no output. There's no attacking threat. There's no identity at United. I can't see the next Premier League title. We've gone 10 years and I can't picture it. I can't picture where our philosophy is going, where it's coming from, like what do we stand for? It's just like we're trying to deal with what's in the moment and not trying to deal with the club as a whole.
Right. I've got one more question for him, before I hand over to James. Obviously, Bruno started on the right wing, right? So Ten Hag, what I'm like struggling to understand, Anthony's on the bench, that's his signing. Mount on the bench, that's his signing. Them two alone, there's others, but like if you don't trust his signings to play like against Man City, Anthony was what, 80 million? So what, like, is that him admitting like his signings are a mistake? Or like, for example, Onana, obviously it's too early to judge him, but I'm saying hypothetically, were you better off keeping De Gea and buying a centre back or a DM? Because like Johnny Evans, 35, he's done good things for United in the past, but he's finished. So should that money have been invested sort of differently? And like, what's the situation? Like Ten Hag, his own signings, Anthony, Mount. Why are they not starting in the Manchester derby? And why is he shoehorning Bruno, who's a cam, to the right wing when you got Anthony, his winger, on the bench?
In terms of the comparisons between De Gea and Onana, I'm just going to be blunt. I think Onana is just the lesser of two evils. I don't think there's a better way to put it. And that's only me saying that now. God knows how Onana will perform for the rest of the season. I said at the start, I was very skeptical. I didn't trust him. I wasn't confident with him. But it was just a case of, you know what, I'm willing to give him a try. It was more of a thing where I just went with the mindset he can't be worse than De Gea. And you got to remember, people were slating De Gea, and somehow him and our defense still kept 17 clean sheets. I think
Yeah, yeah.
three more than any other keepers last season. In terms of our other signings, like you do make a good point. It doesn't give a good image. I mean, it sends the wrong message as well. You've got an 80 million signing on the bench. I mean, I would love to be an 80 million signing on the bench, but I mean, if you're paid 80 million, you would think you wouldn't be starting, especially for the salary they're earning. You got to remember, Jadon Sancho's our highest earner, and it's not even in the first team squad. So is it a case of where we just don't know how to allocate our money properly? Why are we wasting our resources? Um, in terms of signings, yeah, like you mentioned, Mount, we paid over the odds for Mount. There's no way we should have paid more than 40 million. He was somewhat outcasted by your fans, almost by the club. They wanted him out. He wanted out. For someone that wanted to leave, that shouldn't be more than 50, especially given the season he had with Chelsea. Um, Again, like it made no sense for Bruno to start out on the wing. No sense at all. And then Eriksen through the middle. Don't get me wrong. I do like Eriksen, but he's in a derby, he's not the one to start, especially in that number 10 position.
What about Rashford as well? Obviously, since his new contract, what's happened to his form, man? He's
Rashford was another one.
shadow of the player he was last season.
I genuinely thought last season was him turning it around, but I was proven wrong. I think for me, at least in my personal opinion, if he keeps up this form that he's been having for the rest of the season, I think he needs to be sold. I think he needs to find a new club and regain that confidence or whatever it is that he once upon a time had. Because this isn't the first time that Rashford's been poor. We've seen this before, but I mean, we can't be having players that, produce one season and don't produce the other. It's not good enough for us.
Yeah, I'd think like the Manchester derby. If there's any game where, even though I get if you're not playing well, but I'm seeing him walking around in a derby, like not even jumping for headers, challenging. Kyle Walker literally just. I remember that point in the second half, right? Kyle Walker, he sort of the ball comes in the box, he heads it up in the air, and then he goes and heads it away unchallenged. I'm just seeing like no one challenging him, and obviously Rashford's his sort of direct opponent. So I thought, being a Mancunian himself, I thought if there's anyone that would be fighting in the Manchester derby, it'll be him. So I don't know what's happened to his form. But James, anything to add on Man United?
I listened to it and I feel for Man United. I think what happened was they had overachieved last season, and then they suddenly thought they could run before they could walk. And I think they're being found out because they've still got players that aren't doing it enough consistently. I think they've bought pretty poorly to add to their squad this season, and certain players that you would expect to have done well haven't, i.e., the goalkeeper. But it's I don't know. I just think it's sort of they can't go back to the basics of Ferguson and what he did because that era of football, that type of football's gone now. You're not going to get managers that are going to be in a club for 10, 15, 20 years. You're not going to get players that are going to see out their contracts, And I just think they're still living in the hope that they can. I think if all honesty, I think for Man United to get back to where they were, they need to like rebuild Old Trafford or move to a new stadium and rebrand themselves. I think they're still just dining out on too much of their history, But I just think I feel sorry for him because I thought he would have done well, but I similar questions. Like I just wonder if he'd be there at the end of the season now. I think Man United could be looking for another manager.
I'm starting to hear some of their fan base, not Rosanfan, some of the others. I'm already starting to hear them
No,
say,
yeah, I
I'm hearing it already.
definitely by the end of the season, if they don't win anything, because they're still in a few cups, if they don't progress, they don't finish in the top four. I think they'd be looking for new managers. But it's the type of manager. They're similar to Chelsea. It's the type of who I don't know. There's just nothing. There's nothing to sort of put on there. But
I'm seeing a lot of similarities. Like, when a couple of weeks ago, I'm talking about some of our players being played out of position. I'm seeing it a lot at Man United now. When I clocked it, the low, they had Reggie on back from injury. He's a left back. He's not playing left back. Lindelof's playing left back. Bruno playing here. Amrabat playing left back his first couple of games. I'm seeing a lot of similarities with United right now and us. All these weird decisions being made, like where you have players that can play naturally in their position, and for some reason the managers are doing something else. It's weird. I don't get it. But go on, James. West Ham.
Well, having listened to Chelsea and now listening to Man United, I thought we were doing all right up until the last week. If you take the last 3 games in all competitions, we've lost all 3 on the bounce. We went to Villa Park last Sunday, and I didn't realise how good Villa were at home. Their record stands alone. They actually played us off the park. There was a moment when it was 2-1 where I thought, oh, we could nick it here, we could, but then they got a third, and then you saw them getting a fourth rather than West Ham getting back into it. So you take that, and then we, for the first time in about 18 games, lost in Europe to Olympiacos, and the players that you felt come in that wanted to play well because they needed to prove a point didn't show up really. And then yesterday against Everton, like Sean Dyche, he set it up. He's gonna look for clean sheets. That's all he wants. He wants clean sheets the whole time. Every game we play for Everton, he's not worried about winning 3 or 4-0. he will start off his team for the rest of the season like it's been all the time. He wants a clean sheet. And if he gets a clean sheet, he knows he's got a point at least. And he knows that will stay up if he, does that. But he'll nick and win. And that's what he did. Calvert-Lewin was fantastic. He took his goal really well. West Ham, David Moyes, he played the starting 11 that every single fan wanted. They wanted Kudus to start. And he started him. The only thing I would have said, I might have put Antonio on the bench and played Bowen up front and played Kudus because Thomas Souček, he works well with Alvarez. And that just wasn't there. Ward-Prowse had probably one of his worst games for West Ham so far this season. And then the subs didn't have any impact at all, really. And like when you're bringing Ben Rama on with like half an hour to go, he needed to do a lot more. Danny Ings came on for that last 5-10 minutes. You've got youngsters who are like scoring for fun. Divine Mbambo, Marshall scoring for fun. They need to be on the bench, and I'd rather see them come off the bench. But it was a poor defeat. But we knew November's going to be a nightmare because we're playing so many games in November. We played Wednesday night in the League Cup, then played Brentford away. Then we go to European night against Olympiacos at home. It's like, we're playing sort of, 2 games a week, really. It's just whether the squad is strong enough. And then we've got a few key games coming up, like Forest and Luton coming up. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not overly worried because I think people are very quick. You hear a lot of fans after yesterday sort of saying they're running out of patience with David Moyes. Well, a bit harsh, I feel. A bit harsh. I'd like to see David Moyes stay for the season. West Ham finish in the top 8, top 10, and maybe get to a quarter-final Europa League, maybe a semi-final or a final of the League Cup, depending on how they get on Wednesday. There's a lot of games on Wednesday. All of them are on Wednesday night. There's a lot of Premier League clubs playing against each other. So, and if you get through and you get the draw, you could end up, you're only a couple of games away from the final. But disappointed yesterday. Yeah, but I would have think a draw would have been a fair result. A bit harsh on Everton. I think they took their chances better than what West Ham did. But West Ham only had a couple of chances, really. But we got 2 players out now on Saturday against Brentford because they got their 5th yellow card. So Alvarez and Paqueta are going to miss that game. So they might play on Wednesday night, which is a bit of a touch, really, because they probably wouldn't have played Wednesday night against Arsenal in the League Cup. But as they can't play next Saturday, I think Moyes might play them. But I think I think out of the 3 teams, Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, I think we're still doing all right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most certainly.
We're still doing it compared to what the expectations are for Chelsea and the expectations are for Man United. I think we're doing all right still. So I'd hold on what some West Ham fans are calling for in terms of, we've got to get rid. The only thing is, I wonder who we get in. But then we've got this new sporting director. He's looking at like managers in Germany. Like the Dortmund manager was Slavan Bilic's assistant when he was at West Ham. The names elude me at the moment. And then there's another manager doing really well in German league who's a good friend of this guy called Tim, who's the sporting director. So we'll wait and see. But then I don't think that suits West Ham. I don't think we tried it with Pellegrini and it went horribly wrong.
I saw West Ham linked with Mourinho. Like, is that true? I don't know. I saw like links like a couple of days ago, like West Ham with Mourinho. No, I don't get why Moyes' job. What, like I looked at like you won obviously European trophy last season. What are you not like 8th, 9th in the league? I don't get.
No, I don't want to say this because I know there's a few West Ham fans that watch this podcast and tune in and they'll have their opinion and all that. Yeah, but I was talking to someone after the game yesterday, a very well-respected journalist, sort of retired but still comes. Knowledge is outstanding. I'm not going to mention his name, but he made a very valid point. If you put down on paper what David Moyes has done for West Ham, he is potentially one of the West Ham's best managers they've ever had. In terms of like winning, what he's won, what he's done. So West Ham fans, they're living in a bit of like no other manager in the last 5, 6, 7 years would have got West Ham a European trophy. That's the point. He's bought European football for West Ham. This is the 3rd season in a row. We got to the semi-final of the Europa League the first time. lost to Frankfurt, who went on to win it against Rangers in the final. We were in the Europa Conference last year. We went on and won it. We had a run of 18 games in Europe without a defeat.
English record that now, isn't it?
English record, But yet people will say David Moyes can't do it. What
I'm
more
stunned, man. I'm stunned.
What
But
more
it
has he
genuinely
got to
baffles
do?
me. I look at it and
What more has
I
he got to do? You might not like the football he's playing. You might not like his style of playing. There's only one style of play he plays. But come on, give the man credit. Give the man credit.
He's done a
But
great
anyway,
job.
I think that's West Ham done. I think out of the three teams, I think West Ham are more comfortable with Man United and Chelsea at the moment, just in terms of like expectations.
I agree. Moving on, the previews for the upcoming games. Fulham, Man United, Rosanfin, briefly talk through it and then score prediction.
I don't know what to expect to that game, I'll be honest. I feel like Man United, they're a bit all over the place. I think even their fans, there's a lot of uncertainty. I already wrote off the league personally. I think you can't have that bad of a start and expect anything less than eighth, especially given our record, 5 wins, 5 losses. I mean, I would like to think we can turn it around, but I think it's too late. I think, we're basically a quarter into the league. I doubt any changes is going to happen. It's going to take a miracle for us to produce something magic. The only hope I have is currently Carabao Cup. Newcastle. If we can beat Newcastle, a respectable side, they're on the come up, knocked out Man City last round, then it might give me a glimmer of hope. But even then, I'll celebrate for like a day or two back to the league. Can't lose my eye on the prize. In terms of the game against Fulham, I'll be honest, Fulham they're an interesting side, I think they also somewhat overachieved last season. They did well to finish, I think was it 10th.
Yeah.
Obviously they've lost a few players. They're not doing as well this season, but since we're away, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but I think realistically the best we can do going to Craven Cottage, probably get a draw, so I'm gonna go 1-1.
I'm gonna go 2-1 Man United. James?
Fulham Man United, yeah?
Yeah, at Craven Cottage.
Fulham had a good point at Brighton yesterday, wasn't it? I think they got a point, didn't they? But their home form isn't particularly. Man United always do well at Craven Cottage, so I fancy a Man United win, but maybe not as comfortable as what people might think. So could be 1-0, 2-1.
All right. Sticking with you, Brentford, West Ham.
Oh. Well, we need a win or we need a point. West Ham desperately. I think be interested to see how we get on the Wednesday before that takes us to the game with Brentford. But I think Brentford are hit and miss as well. Like they've had a few teams go to Brentford and get results. So I'd like to think West Ham might nick a result, maybe 2-1. So I've got to go for a West Ham win because we need a win. We need a win.
Go on, Rosanfin.
I think Brentford, again, they're a bit of an odd side. I thought, they've been pulling out some results that no one really expected. They are at home, so I think just purely based on form and the fact that Brentford are on form as well, I'm just gonna go 2-1 Brentford.
I'm gonna go 1-1, and Spurs Chelsea, the evening game on Saturday. Listen, Spurs top of the league, clinical when it matters. I've seen them when they get their chances. Son, Madison, these guys, they're clinical in front of goal, and and everything that we're not. So I'm gonna go Spurs 2, Chelsea 0. Anyone could go next.
I'm gonna go Spurs 2-0 as well. I just don't see. I mean, yes, barring the Arsenal game, they're just struggling to score. Similar to United, there's no output at the top.
So as well, remember Arsenal as well as we apparently played. Some of our fans were like, "Yeah, but look at our goals were fluky, both of them. Like that's a Saliba handball. Obviously, he knows nothing about it, and Mudrik's goal, it was a cross. So we can't score like proper goals, legitimate goals, without either being luck or something involved. So go on, James.
Tottenham Chelsea, yeah.
Yep.
Might surprise you here.
Ah man,
It could happen.
do this in the score prediction as well. Because my score, I'm actually keeping that for the score prediction that we do, by the way. I'm 100% 2-0 Spurs. Go on.
Yeah, because then you're on win-win, isn't you? Because if Spurs do win, you get the points, and if
I
Chelsea
want my
win, you're
money. I
happy.
can't lie. I want my
I
money,
fancy
man. I ain't
Chelsea.
making
I
that
fancy
mistake anymore. I
Chelsea.
want my money.
I think Spurs might get caught out just by a bit of pace of Chelsea. Chelsea got a lot of pace, and I think not playing it's at Tottenham, isn't it?
Yep.
So yeah, there'll be a few thousand Chelsea fans, but they can relax. It's a lovely pitch. It's the best stadium. I think Chelsea might, you know, there's a little bit of sort of Tottenham connection with the manager. There's a little bit of sort of, some kind Chelsea win.
All right, fair enough. And sticking with you for the game, the big game that doesn't involve any of our clubs, Newcastle Arsenal, St James's Park.
Big game. Big game. What? Big game.
The big games that
Newcastle
don't
Arsenal.
involve our clubs, man.
I think Newcastle have got a good chance if it's at St James's Park. I think Arsenal don't have a particularly good record there. They always seem to come unstuck. I'm talking a few seasons ago and years ago. If Newcastle score first, I think they could hang on and go on and win it. So I might go Newcastle win.
Xanthan?
I'm gonna go Newcastle win 2-1.
I'm gonna go 2-2. And to wrap it up, Ballon d'Or, who should win it? Just the last few minutes. A name and like a reason why. Anyone can go.
Well, I don't know. Haaland, he's broken all the records. A lot of people wondered whether he could do it in the Premier League. So he's got to be up there for me. So I'd go for him, but there isn't really I don't think there's that Messi Ronaldo situation really, and I think it'd be a bit of a tragedy if Messi wins it. But
I agree.
Haaland, I'll go Haaland.
Yeah, I'll go Haaland as well. Xanthan?
Yeah, has to be Haaland. I mean, Messi's a legend of the game, but it's held every year for a reason. It's a span of somewhat 2022 and then up to now 2023. If you're basing it off one competition, then we should reevaluate all these past winners. If I'm being honest, yeah, Haaland, come on, let's be real. Won the treble, Prem, FA Cup, Champions League, won the biggest trophies, won the Prem title. I mean, the Premier League is one of the biggest leagues, if not the best league in Europe. Broke the record like it was nothing. Let's be real. I mean, people might have expected him to do it maybe 2 or 3 seasons, but he came in first season and done it.
No, I agree.
I mean, I think it's undeserved if he doesn't. I think this will be a bigger crime or robbery than when Lewandowski should have won it before they cancelled it. For me, it doesn't make sense how the rankings and how they do it, purely based on the fact that Messi didn't even touch top 30 last season or last Ballon d'Or, and suddenly he's now contention to win it. I mean, just purely because of his performance in the World Cup. Don't get me wrong, biggest competition in terms of football history. He'll always have his heritage.
Yeah, but that's more of I agree with you. That's more of a sympathy. He's finally won the World Cup. Doesn't mean he could win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, he got the World Cup. He got the Golden Ball for the World Cup, Golden Ball for the World Cup's best player. This is gonna give him the Ballon d'Or. That's more just for your legacy, what you've done, rather than, as Xanthan said, the last 12 months. But yeah, for me, Haaland. Is there anything else anyone wants to say before we wrap up?
No, just League Cup. I think quickly, big games Wednesday night. If you listen to this before Wednesday, I think it could open up. I think there could be a surprise package in the semi-finals, like a Championship or a League One team. I think because
Mansfield, Port Vale.
That's what I mean. They're all drawn against each other, so they're gonna, and then so one of them is gonna get through, and then they could get an easier. Do you know what I mean? It's not as straightforward.
Bradford 2013. Bradford got to the final.
That's what I mean. But I do think. I'll say it now quickly to finish. If either of our teams get through the next round, they're gonna win it. So if there's one of us or 2 of us or all 3 of us get through to the next round, one of our teams will win the cup. Right. Even if it's just West Ham, I think one of our teams will win the League Cup this year. You heard it first.
Well, on that note, everyone, take care, like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you all again soon.